INZaLo LaNga, otherwise known as the birthplace of the sun, is the oldest stone calendar in the world. The late Sanusi Mutwa described it as the holiest place on the African continent. Many now embark on a yearly pilgrimage to mark its significance. We are now joined by scholar and cultural practitioner Mbeko Mgomezulu, also known as Umshumayeli LaNga. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Perhaps we can start with just an introduction of the space and what we need to know about it.
Hello everyone and Happy New Year. It is Umshumayeli LaNga, or the preacher of the sun. As you have highlighted, Baba Muta did mention to us that INZaLo LaNga is a place of great significance when it comes to our origins, not only as Abantu but as humanity as a whole. It's also a place of great significance when it comes to archaeology, and it is still, quite honestly, a gaping hole in the history of humanity. Now, just to quickly go into the architecture of the site, INZaLo LaNga is an ancient arrangement of circular monolithic stones, which were meticulously aligned by our ancestors. I'm going to repeat this again. It was aligned by our ancestors to the four corners of the globe, or the four cardinal points. And we should never miss this, that this site is in South Africa and it was created by Bantu. Now, the arrangement served as a crucial tool for tracking the sun's path, or what we call the ecliptic of the sun. Now, not only that, but from the site, we were able to observe and track starry phenomena like the rising of the Pleiades, or the rising of the stars on the three stars on the belt of Orion, the rising of Ikpawe, Usoter, the Savior, the star Sirius, the rising of Unanga, or the star Canopus. Our ancestors were able to do all that from this remarkable configuration. Now, this further allowed us to precisely divide the solar year into distinct, verifiable patterns, of which we can trace. And out of those patterns, the most notable are the spring equinox, the solstices, and the much less discussed, the cross-quarter days. Now, throughout time now, from these observations, I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah,
from the site, we will then go on to determine the division of time through monitoring the shadow which would be cast by the sunset at certain times of the year on a central monolith. The site is actually a circle, and then on the center there is a center rock, and then that center rock would cast a shadow onto a flatbed calendar stone, if I were to put it like that. Now, this method, it enabled us to mark significant events in our year. Like, for example, when to plant our seeds, the beginning of the civil year, and of course, the commencement of the spiritual year, which is what we are currently celebrating and acknowledging the return of the sun to the southern hemisphere.
Let's speak about the spiritual realm which you are currently acknowledging. What does that mean?
The spiritual realm, you see, throughout the year, there is a cycle, or igagasi, lemvelo, that we have now lost touch to, because we are now following systems which were forced upon us through the system of religions and, of course, neo-colonization, which is what we are currently following. And so any nation, even if you go to the northern hemisphere, they follow igagasi of nature. Now, this is what we are trying to realign ourselves with, that when the sun rises out of that winter solstice, we are also rising with the sun. When the sun passes over from the winter into the summer, we are also passing over with the sun, which is not what we are currently doing. Right now, when we are passing over into the sun, you will find those of us who are inclined to religions, predominantly the Abrahamic religions. This is where we would be mourning the falling of the sun, because that is what the northerners are doing. In March, you would find us, instead of mourning the dying of the sun in the southern hemisphere, we would be celebrating the resurrection of the sun, which is the Passover or Good Friday. So that is the spiritual alignment that must be done for the southern hemisphere and the rest of Africa as a whole. You see, what we have created now is an idea or a dream, if I may, which is specifically designed to mobilize all the clans of the southern hemisphere under one banner, regardless of clan name, race, or religious inclination. You see, the commencement of the African calendar in spring is many things to different people. And I dare say, as Umshumayeli LaNga, that to the Christian, it's as good as Good Friday. And to the Hebrew, it is as good as the Passover, the month of beginnings. And of course, for us, ngesintu, it is umandulo, the time we commemorate the first shoots, or the first green shoots from the seeds which we committed to the ground at the appearing of INZaLo. And so for us in the southern hemisphere, it is a call to remember the ancient ways of our ancestors.
What are some of those ancient ways of the ancestors?
The ancient ways of our ancestors, for now, we would say, even though, let me comment it this way, even though we are calling it the African calendar, but the observances thereof only apply to the southern hemisphere. You see, our continent is quite big and it spans 2 hemispheres. And not only that, we also have an equator which runs across the continent. And as you go up through this continent, the seasons begin to change. In other places, they've got 2 seasons, the rain season and the dry season. In other places, they've got 3 seasons. As you get closer to the equator, it's 2 seasons. Now, for us in September, when the sun is reborn, in July, we commemorate the appearing of the Pleiades, of which it's one of the star clusters that you'd be able to see from that plateau in Mpumalanga, which commemorates for us the beginning of the hoeing season, or the time we start clearing the fields. Now, from that point on to September 23 or September 25, which is actually the time when the sun actually gets out of the spring equinox, this is where now Sindulelisa, what we have committed to the ground in that actual spring. Siphakama nelanga futhi sehla nalo. As we would sing as Christians, silala naye, sivuka naye ke manje. That is the ritual for the season. That is the ritual that connects all of us, regardless of race, clan, religious creed, under this one celebration of the 23rd, of which we are calling Heritage Day.
Okay. There's a pilgrimage also to this space for people who are interested in that pilgrimage. What is it about? What can you look forward to?
The pilgrim is based on the idea that as the sun comes out of the winter solstice, you begin your journey, or ukuvuleka kwembali, if I were to put it like that. And then on this journey, there is now a pilgrim which has been created by some of us. And leading up to that pilgrim, there are some observances that we carry, like the fasting that you would find under the season of Lent or the season of Ramadan, the fasting that leads us over into spring and summer, of what you would symbolize, if we were to use the Christian context, as the land flowing with milk and honey. So we would fast, or we would do a OMAD, or 1 meal a day program, which would culminate, depending on which system you are using, under the great empire of Kemet. They are currently on that program now. It starts in Durban. I can't remember where they end it. Or you go through this fasting period as you are crossing over, or as you are passing over into the land which was promised by our ancestors to return to each and every year, if we knew how to be faithful followers of Umalangeni, the sun.